you were still chairing this committee, how would you move forward?
Well, I want to say there is precedent to releasing committee reports after a member has resigned or departed from Congress. So, in fact, there was a case in 1990 where there were allegations of a member having sex with a 16-year-old member resigned, and a report was issued after he resigned. So that's not a new thing. There are other reports that were issued after the fact as well. And I could list several cases where the committee made various public statements or took action after members resigned. And so I think it's entirely appropriate to release this report. And again, I should always point out too, when members of Congress resign due to scandal, they usually go away quietly. That is, they go about the business of reconstructing their lives, their relationships, and repair things with their families. They need to do this. But they don't get promoted or get elevated to become the top law enforcement officer of the United States. And that's why this report is taking on such great urgency, because the U.S. Senate wanted this report as part of their official record in terms of their confirmation process. They wanted to see it. And frankly, a lot of the American people probably want to see it too. They'd like to know about the top law enforcement officer as well, if there are really serious allegations of sexual misconduct.
Well, Congressman Matt Gaetz isn't exactly going home to lay down in Florida. The options at the moment include potentially returning to Congress, as he won his election for the 119th. That remains unclear. He could still get a job inside the White House that does not require confirmation in the Senate. He could also be named, presumably, for the open Senate seat that's about to emerge in Florida when Marco Rubio, again, is presumably confirmed for Secretary of State. Do those heighten the urgency, the need to release this report now, because he may still be a key figure in Washington?
Well, I think now that he is withdrawn, now that his name has been withdrawn, that takes a little bit of the pressure off, but not that much, because Matt Gaetz, this has been pointed out, has a lot of enemies, and most of those enemies are within the Republican Party, and I suspect a number of them would like to see him kneecapped right now. But putting that aside, the political motivations. The issue is, he may go back into government, and these are very serious allegations. It appears that this investigation was, in fact, completed prior to his resignation. The only thing that they were waiting to do was to actually vote on it and the actual report language, which, I'm not sure is actually final, but close to final, probably, having served on that committee. And I'm sure, and this report is the reason why he did resign from Congress. If this report was going to be some kind of an exoneration or a clean bill of health, he would not have resigned. He's resigning because these reports usually talk about sanctions, reprimands, censures, expulsion in the worst cases. They talk about even if there's potential criminal wrongdoing, they can refer that to the Justice Department. They'll talk about bringing discredit upon the House. These are not pretty reports. And that's why he left, thinking that the Congress would lose jurisdiction, which they technically do. But it's only been a courtesy. It's a custom or a courtesy that the committee not release reports. It is not a rule. There is no rule that prohibits the release of a report after a member has departed. And there are circumstances where it is warranted, and I happen to think this is one of them.
Well, the Speaker of the House doesn't seem to be in agreement with you on that. He suggests that there could be bad precedent set here. We've heard others do the same. And as we consider the ideas of precedent or the traditional process of the House as an institution, Congressman, I'm sure you've heard, as we all have, the idea that even if this is not formally issued, it could very well leak out, that the Democrats could decide, for example, to just put it out there or read it on the House floor anyway. But I wonder if that gives you some concern about the integrity of the Ethics Committee as part of an institution that is there to hold members to these ethical standards and to hold them to account.
Well, let me say something. I disagree with the Speaker on this. I think he should not have said anything, frankly. He should have just his statement should have been, we'll let the committee do its work, and we have a bipartisan committee, 5 members from each party. I trust them to make a good judgment. That's what he should have said, and not weighed in on this. But as to the precedent, Let me in 2018, a former congressman named Blake Farenthold resigned, and after he left, the committee made a public statement, and that issue had to deal with sexual harassment, and then there was some kind of settlement after that. So they made statements after he resigned. Mark Foley, you may remember, had sent inappropriate text messages to pages, congressional pages, who were under 18. And after he resigned abruptly, the Ethics Committee actually deposed current sitting members of Congress to ask them about what they knew about this case. So even though they lose jurisdiction perhaps over that member, it didn't mean that the matter died entirely. And they, like I said, there was plenty of precedent. And there was another case back in 1987 where a member had resigned, and the committee issued a report for this member's misconduct. There were issues of bribery, misuse of campaign funds, and other things. So it's not like this is so there's no precedent being set here. And, I think a lot of people in the American public might want to know. And if he does get a position in government or other higher office, again, a lot of folks might like to know the facts of this circumstance. And these are professional investigations. They are well done. They're nonpartisan investigations, and they're very thorough.
We're reliving the greatest hits here with Charlie Dent. Congressman, lastly, when you look at this in the aggregate, the names beyond Matt Gaetz that Donald Trump has put forth to fill out his cabinet, how difficult of a position is he putting Republican senators in when this confirmation process begins?
Well, look, some of President-elect Trump's nominations are quite good. He's got Marco Rubio, Lee Zeldin. He's got other folks, Doug Collins at the VA. He's got other well-known folks like Elise Stefanik. Nobody's going to question her capability. They might question her politics, and Christine Holmes, same thing. But people are probably not going to question their capabilities. So they have a number of very good nominations. Mike Waltz over at the National Security Advisor, Rubio, as I mentioned. So they have a number of
Gabbard, RFK Jr.
The problem they have is that these unvetted nominations, RFK Jr., it clearly comes to mind, obviously, with the Secretary of Defense nominee. There are all kinds of problems there. What's really stunning about the process, at least in some of those cases, is that there's nobody from the transition team calling the Senate leadership, Republican leadership, about these nominations in advance. To kind of have them pre-clear some of these about potential nomination issues, nomination problems, and that's what is really stunning. I mean, that's how a functional presidency should operate. You just don't send a name over there blindly. You try to scrub it a bit first.